Hey guys, YWAMers, YWAM Beyonders. I don't know if we have a official name for us yet, but I'm here with this man. You probably recognize him. This is Dan Bauman. Maybe he spoke in your DTS, but just a man of God and a man that I'm so grateful to call a friend. And I just asked him to share a word of encouragement for you. And as you know, about a year ago, or how long ago has it been?
Year and a half.
Year and a half ago, Dan fell off a cliff and basically was pronounced dead. And as you can tell, that wasn't the end of the story. But that's a whole nother story, and Dan wanted to share some specific things with you. So without further ado.
Thank you. It's good to be with you and to share my heart. And again, I just want to say thank you to anyone who had been praying for me for my accident. There's not a moment that goes by of my life now where I'm not just so grateful, both to Jesus for what he did for me and for all of you that prayed for me. And yeah, I'm doing so much better, traveling and speaking and doing the things I've always loved. As I think about life and as I think about all that I've been learning about Jesus, I constantly reflect back on when it was for me when I actually moved into Afghanistan. Although it was a missional moment in that I was moving into the Middle East, it was so much other things that was going on. I was asked to go and work at a hospital there in Afghanistan. And I had no specific training, even though I had a business degree, and I so did not feel like I could ever run a hospital. I was told to have all this money in order to go, at least $1,500 a month. And I had only $300 a month that my church was able to commit to me, so I had no money in that sense. I had no idea about the culture. There was no YWAMers there. I was just going to join a work and join an office, and that was basically what I was walking into. So with this reality came so many insecurities and challenges in my heart, like, could I do this? It's not going to be good. I'll never be good at it. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how I'll survive without people that I know, without a culture that I'm used to. And all this was very real for me as I began the journey of walking towards Afghanistan. And I'll never forget the day that I actually flew into Afghanistan for the first time. I was 23, and I was on this airplane flying into Afghanistan with over 150 Afghans and me. And this moment of terror, of fear, of emotion hit me, and I looked up to God and I just said, God, why? Why are you sending me all alone? And it was right then I felt like Jesus say, Dan, you're not alone. A few minutes later, I looked up to Jesus again and I said, Jesus, why are you sending me in all alone? And I felt again Jesus say, Dan, you're not alone. And I'm like, yes, I am. He's like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. And as I sat there, I felt like Jesus say, Dan, do you know what's happening in Kabul, Afghanistan right now as you're flying there? Would you like to see? And I'm like, yes, please. And God gave me a vision. He's given me a few in my life. And it was a vision of the airport in Afghanistan where two people were waiting for incoming flights. One of them was Jesus and one was another man. And this was the conversation. Jesus looks at the man and goes, so what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I'm waiting for a business contact. And Jesus says, oh, okay. And then he looks at Jesus and says, so what are you doing here? And Jesus' eyes brighten up. And he goes, oh, my friend Dan. My friend Dan's coming to see me. And the man's like, who is Jesus? Or who's Dan? And Jesus was like, you don't know Dan? Dan's my really good friend. And yeah, he's coming here to see me. And the guy's like, okay. And as the conversation continued, they heard an airplane land, and Jesus ran up to the fence, and he looked, and he was like, I don't think it's Dan, it's in a cargo plane, not a passenger plane. And he came back to where he was standing. As he came back, Jesus started to twitch like this, just moving around. And the man looked at him and said, what's the problem? And Jesus said, I'm just so excited I can't stand still. And the guy's like, excited about what? And Jesus said, I told you, my friend Dan's coming to see me. And the guy's like, so why is that such a big deal? And Jesus is like, you have no idea. Dan thinks he's coming here to reach the Afghan people. And yes, that's going to happen. But the main reason I asked him here is because this is the best place for him and I to get tight. This is the best place for me and Dan to grow closer in our friendship. And that's why I asked him to come. And I'm so excited to see him. It was a few minutes later that another plane came, and Jesus runs up to the fence. And he's like, yeah, this is the one with Dan. And they push up the staircase, they open the door, and people start to come out of the airplane. And finally I come to the top of the staircase, and Jesus looks intently at me. Then he looks back at this other guy and says, there he is. There's my friend Dan. He came to see me. And it was right at that moment that the vision ended. And I'm flying to Afghanistan, sitting on the airplane all alone, tears running down my face. And I looked up to Jesus and said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, I'm serious. Like, Jesus, for real, the main reason you asked me to go to Afghanistan is because it's the best place for our friendship to grow? He's like, Dan, that's exactly why I asked you to come. And all my fears, all my questions, all the things I think couldn't work out, might not work out, all my problems, they kind of faded because I knew that the lover of my soul was there waiting for me. And as I think about that in today's world, in today's life, that whatever God asks me to do, it's the best place for me to get to know Jesus. That whatever he asks me to do, it's the best place for me to know who he is. And yes, there are challenges with whatever we're asked to do. New job opportunities, new places to go, new things to do, the lack of fellowship or friendship like we might have known in our DTSs, or whatever it might be as we're walking forward with the reality of the challenges. We can know that as we simply walk with Jesus, it's the best place to get to know him. That's why he asks us to do whatever he asks us to do. And in that, he is there with us. And that is the answer to today's problems. Anyway, these are just things that I'm learning. I wish you all the best. And thank you for letting me share my heart.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, for sharing with us. And such a good reminder. And Dan is such an example of just walking with God and saying yes to him in obedience, and then just getting closer to him because of it. So thanks again, Dan, for sharing.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.